Welcome, welcome. There's no crying in fantasy. This is week two. I am your host, Scrap. I got a special guest today. This is going to be my co host for the majority of the season while he's available. Let me welcome to the show my man, Mr. Brian Mitty, aka Bud. What's going on, Bud?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm happy to be here. Happy to join you today. This is going to be a good time.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Talking
sir.
about fantasy. That's our life during fall and winter. That's us.
So let's talk about your background. Can you give us a little bit on your background in fantasy?
Yeah. So this is going to be my 15th year of doing fantasy. So I've been doing this since the mid 2000s. And the more and more I've done it, I started off with one league, enjoyed it for 2 years, then created my own league. Took some things that I saw from it and to incorporate into my league. Um, Expanded my league to 12 teams, won a couple of championships in my own league. Um, Introduced a couple people to fantasy. They branched off and created their own league as well, and just kept going and going and joining their leagues. And to this year's, I'm in my seventh league, so I'm doing seven leagues this year. I did six drafts already, one more to go on Thursday. So I'm kind of drained from it. Doing all the research. It's a lot of shit. So a lot of shit talking. There's a lot of backing up to do when you talk so much.
So you got six drafts. You got one left. When's your last one?
Thursday. This Thursday is big league, $300 buy-in. But it's only a 10-team league, so I feel pretty confident that I'm gonna dominate that league. First time
Okay.
doing this league, so
Okay.
I feel confident.
That's
All
what's
my other
up.
leagues are 12 or 14, so smaller league. I think I should be able to dominate.
Okay. All right.
Especially I had the wraparound picking. I had the 10 pick, 10 out of 10 pick. So we're doing the wraparound this year on that league. So I
Oh,
already got my
it's a
strategy.
really small league. It's a really small league.
Yeah, it's a 10 team league. So I feel
Okay.
like I should be able to dominate easily with that one.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm happy to be here. Happy to do this with you.
Well, welcome to the show. This will be
Thanks.
the first of many. So
Yep.
let's get into today's topic. So of course, the biggest news of the day was Cam Newton being released by the Patriots and Mac Jones being the starter. Let's discuss this impact from a fantasy perspective.
Mhm.
Um, I want to get your perspective on this. How do you think that this affects the Patriots from a fantasy perspective? And also, if Cam were to go to another team, how would that impact another team?
Overall, I think Cam Newton, at this point in his career, he's not good for fantasy. He's not good for any team's fantasy prospects. Just thinking about today with the news of Cam getting cut, everyone's been going crazy about Damian Harris now. Why? Because he's not going to get vulture touchdowns from him. Cam is known to be accurate quarterback. Jacoby Myers, the tight ends over there. Now you're more confident that they're going to see the ball and they're going to actually be able to catch the ball. It's not going to be 5 feet over their heads. And Cam's arm is also deteriorated. If you ever watch him pass, he's putting his whole body into it. When he first came into the league, it was effortless. Now it's totally different. So I think everybody's fantasy prospects go up. Even James White, who's just third down back. Now Mac Jones is pretty much, a baby Tom Brady, and that's why Belichick liked him. Not that he's going to have the same career as the GOAT, but just his makeup. We got to see what his heart is, where his heart is, and if he has that talent and that longevity. But just his makeup is very, very similar to Tom Brady, and that's why they liked him. But Damian Harris, at this point, I put him in. I'm drafting on Thursday, I'll put him in the range of 15 to 20 in the RB conversation. I think before this trade, he was probably in the probably 24 to 27 range, and now he gets bumped up big time. I think he's a solid RB2 for you. And
PPR?
I think PPR, yeah, I think PPR, and even because he's going to get the ball as long as he stays healthy and he can hold up Ramadre. the young rookie. I think he's going to eat because I don't know about you. What do you think? Do you think he's better than LeGarrette Blount when he was on the Patriots?
Damian?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Damian's a better runner than LeGarrette. I mean, LeGarrette was good for, LeGarrette is TD dependent, but
Exactly.
I feel like Damian is a better runner. He's better hitting the hole. He has a better stride. And I do think that I know James White is the third down back, but I do think that they can use Damian in the pass game a little bit more than they were last season.
I agree.
I think Damian Harris. I think Damian Harris is the biggest winner from Cam Newton leaving because he's going to get the goal line touches now. There's not going to have Cam still in the goal line touches. And I feel like that was driving down everybody's fantasy value. And Cam wasn't even getting you 20 points a game. It was just he was driving down the value of everybody around him.
So that's the thing about Cam. He was driving down the value of everyone else, but at the same time, he wasn't going to propel his value enough for him to be fantasy relevant. More than a bye week fill-in or a 2-quarterback super flex, I believe. He wasn't going to be able to be your number QB1 consistently without this.
So out of all the receivers, let's say other than Jacoby Jones, because we know Jacoby Myers is going to be heavily involved in the pass game on short intermediate routes. Who else are you looking at on the Patriots from either a pass catching standpoint or let's talk about Mac Jones too. So tell me who you're looking at, who do you upgrade, and let's talk about Mac Jones.
I love Mac Jones. From what I saw in the preseason, I was not expecting much from him after the way I saw him walk up to the stage on draft day with that little swag. That was not a good swag walking up to the draft stage to greet Goodell. But he impressed me during the preseason. And in terms of who I think is going to benefit most, the tight ends, because Belichick loves to throw up the seam, whether it was with Gronk and Hernandez. That's exactly what they did. They spent big money this offseason on pass catchers, and the pass catchers they spent money on are the tight ends. So that's exactly what they want to continue to do. And Matt Jones, his accuracy and in preseason games, he looked like he's already poised. He looks like he's ready for the NFL. And the reason, in my opinion, the reason why they had to get rid of Cam is because Cam has a big personality. So you can't have Cam sitting on the bench when he was already the leader of that team. And now this rookie comes in place. The rookie needs to be able to, show his leadership. And that's not going to be able to take place with Cam, looking over his shoulder. So they need to get rid of Cam. And also James White, I think he's going to get a slight bump as well in the passing game. Even though Cam did well with CMC, he did learn how to check down, but it wasn't fluid for him. I think this is much easier for Mac Jones. I think it's perfect marriage. I don't know where Cam could go at this point. He might be washed, honestly.
Well, all right. So sticking on the pass catchers, I think Nelson Aguilar gets a big bump because we were very worried about Nelson Aguilar and how he was going to be as a receiver with Cam. But I think Mac Jones.
I hope he's not dropping babies anymore.
But the thing is, here's the thing. Mac Jones gives the team the ability to stretch the ball down the field. So I think you're going to see you'll see a few deep shots with Nelson Aguilar that you may not have seen with Cam because Cam was just straight short intermediate routes. He wasn't giving you a lot down the field last year.
But do you think that's the Patriots game? Because even with Brady, they weren't doing that. They had the Wes Welker, they had the Edelman. The only time they really stretched field was when they had Moss for those couple of years. So they always like the short intermediate, quick slants.
That's not true. That's not true because Brady, before he started aging, took a few deep shots down the field every game. I mean, it wasn't like that. But it was before Moss and after Moss. It wasn't like that was their game. But he definitely took deep shots down the field. Now with Mac Jones, I think you have a younger arm that gives you the ability to stretch the field a little bit more than you have been in recent years. I also think that yes, James White is going to get a bump, and I think James White is going to get a bump because let's not act like the Patriots just got upgraded and they're going to win 10 games you know, and they're just going to be up in games, you know, running the ball at the end of the game.
So you don't think that the Patriots overall, outside of fantasy talk, you don't think they're going to be a good team?
I don't think they're going to be that. In that division, I think they're going to be third.
Really?
That's just my opinion. I think they're going to be third. I look at, of course, we think the Bills are going to be number one. I think the Dolphins are going to come in at number two. But I think the Patriots are going to be third. Even with that defense, I think the Patriots are going to be third. And I think that's why they have more confidence putting Mac Jones out there right now to get him the experience. He doesn't have the veteran quarterback looking over his shoulder right now. You know, I don't think they're going to be winning a ton of games, so I think they're going to be behind in a few games, and that's where James White comes into play.
I disagree. I think that the Patriots are going to be a good team. I think this year they were 8-8 last year, and they had a couple games that I remember they lost that goal line stop game against the Seahawks on Sunday night. We saw 11-5. So I think that, you know, and they let a lot of players on the defense opted out because of COVID. And they're going to get them back. Gilmore is going to be on the pup a little bit, but I think that the defense coming back, and I think overall you can't count on Belichick. I think they're going to be a playoff team, to be honest. I think, and not necessarily that's James White's going to take a bump because they're going to be winning games, but I do think that, you know, Mac Jones is going to track down a little bit more. I also think that the whole offense is going to be better, just more efficient. They're going to have an identity this year, and whatever that identity is, it's going to work out for them.
So you think the Patriots are going to be a playoff team this year?
Yes.
Okay, that's big.
I don't like to count out Belichick. I ain't counting out Belichick.
I know, but that's big expectations for a rookie quarterback. So, I mean,
I believe Belichick.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll see. As far as Cam goes, I think the most obvious place that we think he's going to wind up in is Houston, and I think that's terrible for Houston because it puts Houston in that place where the little bit of fantasy value that Houston has, is just going to be lost. And you know, I think it's bad if you've already drafted. Yeah, I think it's bad if you've already drafted.
Houston already had those three running backs that, you know, no one knows who to take, you know, in fantasy. And now Cam possibly coming in and vulturing, I think that makes it even worse. Brandon Cooks, he puts up numbers everywhere. He's quiet with his numbers. He puts up 1,000 yards, and you don't really expect it from him or know where it's coming from. I think he would take a hit. But I think that I've been hearing that the Cowboys are looking to bring Cam as a backup. I'm not so sure that Cam wants to be a backup, though. But I don't know if that would work either way, because I think they have that young quarterback. Rush is the only quarterback on their roster, and he's a bum. So, you know, Cam would be good as a safety net for Dak, but I think Cowboys would take a hit as well. Definitely take a hit if they were in a pinch and Cam had to start for them. I don't see Cam. I see if you take there's 32 teams, any team that Cam goes on, I think he hurts the value.
I agree.
That's why I say he's bad for fantasy.
I think he's better. I think he's better in the backup role for right now, and I think it would be interesting to see him go to Dallas and be Dak's backup. So, but I don't know if he can play that role. I don't know if he can play that role.
I don't think he sees himself at that point in his career yet.
Yeah. So
and also, I don't know if teams are willing to take that risk right now because he was a little irresponsible. I think that's played a part in why Belichick got rid of him, with not understanding the COVID rules and him being irresponsible. Teams don't want to take that chance with a backup quarterback infecting the quarterback room when he's not the starting quarterback, it's the backup. And you're going to possibly infect the quarterback room where now Dak might have to sit out for 5 days. That might make him out for the game. I don't know if teams want to take that chance.
That's a good point. So let's get on to the next topic, and let's talk about the preseason. So what did you learn throughout this preseason that you didn't know going in? Is there anything that stuck out for you?
The quarterbacks this year. Usually, I feel like quarterbacks, first round quarterbacks are always hyped up more than they really are. But this year's class, they look like they couldn't really be the real deal. And I think the real deal is that they all landed in spots that are perfect. And for example, like Trey Lance and Justin Fields, I think especially Trey Lance being which Shanahan in San Francisco, I think that's a great move for him. I think that's going to be. I think they already showed that they might bring him in and out to ease him in with Jimmy G. With that last game against the Raiders, that's going to keep defenses on their toes, And it's kind of similar to what the Saints were doing with Taysom Hill and Drew Brees, but now you actually have a real quarterback, two real quarterbacks doing it, and I think that's going to be huge. Zach Wilson looked actually better than I expected. The one person, shockingly, that out of the quarterbacks that I feel is the most shaky is Trevor Lawrence. And the reason why I feel that way is because of his coach. I don't know what he's doing. The coach been making a lot of little missteps here and there, whether it's who he's playing, when he's playing them in the preseason. There's been talks of the veterans on the team looking at him like he's not transitioning to the pro game right. I think he might mess up Trevor in the long run. But Trevor has that talent and he has that pedigree that's supposed to be good. But I'm not as impressed as I am with Zach Wilson, for example, the number 2 pick. He looked really good. He's looking really good, and even Nagy's doing a good job, I think, in Chicago with Fields.
So who do you think is going to be the best rookie quarterback for fantasy this year?
This year, it's probably gonna. At this point, I think it might be Mac Jones because we know he's going to start from the beginning of the season. Zach Wilson's also going to be starting all year. Trevor's going to be there, but I think Mac is just in a perfect situation, and I did not expect that. He was the last rookie to be drafted in the first round too, right?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, number 15, and he's looking like he's going to be the best to me. I think, but the other guys have wheels, like with Fields and Lance, they're going to be able to, they're going to be dual threat. But are they going to start from day one? I'm not sure if they announced that.
I think Zach Wilson is going to be the best rookie quarterback for right now. Yeah,
really?
And my only concern with Mac Jones is Mac Jones isn't going to get enough volume from a quarterback perspective to be as effective with Damian Harris in the run game. I think Zach Wilson is going to be throwing a lot more than Mac Jones is. So I think,
yeah, and also just going to be a little bit worse too.
Right.
Team, so they're going to be
right.
behind a little bit more.
I think they're going to be chasing garbage points, and I just think that Zach Wilson is going to have the best rookie quarterback fantasy performance, out of that group. Trevor Lawrence, I think he's going to be good in a few years.
Yeah. That's possible. Which of the rookie quarterbacks you think have the best receiving core?
Ooh, that's tough. The best receiving core is Justin Fields. So I mean,
Chicago?
Yeah, I think it's between Justin Fields and Trey Lance. Because you look at Justin Fields has Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney. It's really not a solid third there, but when you have Allen Robinson, and I think Darnell Mooney's going to take a big step this year, that's solid. And then over in San Francisco, you got Ayuk, you got Samuel, you got Kittle. So yeah, Trey Lance probably has the best wide receiver core, the best pass catching core.
My thing with Trey Lance is I don't know if he's going to be. He's not going to start the season as as the number one quarterback. So what do you do in that situation, right? You want to stash him on your bench. You don't know if the 49ers are doing well. They're not going to pull the plug on Jimmy, for anything. They may have a package here and there for Lance here and there, but it's not going to be enough to be fantasy relevant. So he may be a little stifled in this rookie year.
Let's be honest. Trey Lance and Justin Fields are starting at some point during this season. Like that's the reality. When you
I'm
draft
more
a quarter,
confident that Fields will. I'm not sure about Lance.
I think Lance will.
Jimmy might be able to hold him up.
All right, so let's look at the division, right? You got the Rams, you got the Cardinals, and you got the Seahawks. Do you really think that San Francisco is going to be competing enough where they get to the end of the season and they say we're sticking with Garoppolo?
Yeah, it's possible because that defense is still amazing. They still have amazing defense. They're still going to be in the games. They may still be a win. Are they going to pull the plug after 10 games and they're 6-4? Are they going to go, switch quarterbacks at that point?
We've seen that done. We've seen that done before where a team may not be that far behind for the playoff hunt, but they need to switch it up and make a change. You got the number, what was Trey Lance? The number three, four? Yeah, draft pick sitting on your bench. You want to come in and give your team a spark, that's who you go to. So I think that's what's going to happen. We've seen it happen with Kaepernick. When Kaepernick was a rookie, he came in for Alex Smith. It's like teams do this to give their teams a jolt, right? Like when they need to give their team a jolt, they call on that rookie quarterback to come in because it's like, what do we have to lose? Like we don't have anything to lose at this point. So I think that's what you're going to see.
But I do think that San Francisco's built their win now team though. So, they do have something to lose, Like last year, Miami kind of did the same thing when they pulled the plug on Fitzpatrick to Tua. But I do think San Francisco sees themselves as a title contender because of their such great defense. And so
I think that's a
little bit nervous giving the rookie, the reins to the game.
I think that's a great example is Miami last year with Tua and Fitzpatrick. I think you're going to see some of the same moves that are made this year in San Francisco. So, but I think my takeaway from this season for preseason was this isn't like the sexy pickup, but like the second string running back. I think that are going to have an impact. Like in New Orleans, you got Tony Jones, who I think is going to take over that second role. We all know New Orleans has an exceptional run game. They use multiple backs throughout the game. You look at Jared Jefferson in Washington. I think he's going to have – I'm sorry, Jared Patterson in Washington. He's going to have a role behind Antonio Gibson. Kenneth Gainwell in Philly, I think he's going to be the 2-minute back. He's going to be the pass-catching third down back. So, like, if you're looking deep in your draft, I think that there's running backs out there that you can grab that are going to have an impact throughout the game. And it's not just the team is going to be relying on that one back to drive. So that's what I noticed during the preseason is how these teams are using their backs, how they're rotating them, and who's getting the majority of the touches.
Which one of those guys that you just named you feel is going to have the best chance to take over that job as the primary back?
That's tough.
Out of the ones that you named,
I think
is it possible? Do you think Gainwell could take a Sanders job?
I think if Sanders does not come out hot and have a good beginning of the season, I think Kenneth Gainwell could take over his job. And it's the simple fact that you have a new coach. Kenneth Gainwell was brought in by that coaching staff, and Miles Sanders is a holdover from the last regime. So if Kenneth Gainwell gets the ball a couple times and is productive, I think you could see him getting more touches and possibly push for that starting role.
And the guy who you didn't name, Trey Sermon. Now that guy, I think sooner than later he might take over that role. But I think Moser is a really, really good running back. But the injury bug always strikes with him. I don't know if he stays healthy, will Sermon take over?
I think you're going to see the roles reversed with them. And Shanahan always uses multiple backs. Shanahan rotates 3 backs a game sometimes. So I think you're going to
still makes them all relevant, fantasy relevant too.
Right. And I think Shanahan knows that he needs to keep Mostert healthy throughout the season. And I think Mostert is going to come in to be more of that dynamic back out of the backfield for them, where Trey Sermon is going to be more of the carry the load back the first and second down back that you're going to see come in. So I think they're going to have more of a 50-50 share, but I think Trey Sermon is going to be in there more early than some of these other backs that we're talking about, like the Kenneth Gainwells and the Jared Pattersons and all them.
What do you think of Michael Carter with the Jets?
I think he has a way to go.
But he has, to me, out of all the rookie running backs we're talking about, I think he has the easiest path to becoming the man over there, because who is he competing with? He's competing with Tevin Coleman and who's the other guy over there? I can't even think. I remember who's the number 2 over there. They're talking about doing a committee over there, but Ty Johnson. So they're talking about doing a committee with over there, but I don't see much, people for him to jump over, or the talent's not there that is going to hold him back from actually taking over and making it more of a lead dog situation.
Yeah. So my opinion on that is I think you're going to see Michael Carter take over later in the year, and I think he's going to be eased in. But he does have the clearest path to the starter role. But Michael Carter also is not. He's not really a first and second down back. He's more of that dynamic back that comes in to give the spark, take over. Yeah, more of the scat back, kind of more of the third down back. So you may see Tevin Coleman, if he can stay healthy, throughout the season, and then see Michael Carter kind of come in and replace Ty Johnson. But I don't think you're going to see him completely take over that backfield.
So you don't see him as a potential 3-down back even in the future?
My fault. You breaking up, bud.
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, we lost.
I said, do you see? Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
I said, do you see Michael Carter as someone that could potentially be a 3-down back, or that's not really in his makeup and DNA?
No, I don't think he's going to be a 3-down back. I think
never.
No, I don't see him as that 3-down back, but I see him as more the dynamic. I think we're making too much out of the Michael Carter situation. Honestly, I wanted to see him and see what he could do in preseason, and I like it, but it's just not like. I don't think he's that guy. I don't think he's that guy that's going to be that 3-down back, that workhorse. I think he's going to be the dynamic back, more like the Matt Breida type of back.
Yeah, I'm in New York, so we have a little New York bias and Homer bias when it comes to Michael Carter and stuff like that. So the hype on Michael Carter is through the roof over here.
Yeah, I know. I know how New York is. So, all right. So let's
just going to the playoffs.
So let's get into Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas is staying on the pup. He's going to be out for 6 weeks. They have a bye, I believe it's week 7. So he's not coming back until week 8. What do you do in your draft with Michael Thomas? Who are you looking at from the Saints? Let's say other than Marquez Callaway, because everybody's looking at Marquez Callaway. Who's the other person on the Saints that we think could fill that role?
I think Marquez Callaway is the guy there on the Saints. Traquan, what he is. Anything. I don't think number 2 really. And even when Michael Thomas was there, it was Michael Thomas eating everything. And it was Michael Thomas and Kamara. And I think Callaway's going to take that role. But the thing about Michael Thomas, to me, is that I don't know if Callaway, shows what he showed in preseason, if that translates into the regular season, they might even think about trading Michael Thomas. Because, the way that he handled his injury last year, even when he had a little beef with Drew Brees, after Drew Brees, had that whole Black Lives Matter protest thing that he said about the flag, him and Michael Thomas weren't seeing eye to eye. It felt like even when Michael Thomas could come back, he didn't come back until Drew Brees got hurt. And then when Drew Brees came back, he kind of seemed a little disinterested. He didn't want to play anymore. So, and then in the offseason, he wasn't taking their calls. So I think that they're on the outs. So if Marcus Callaway comes in and he actually performs, they might use that as a reason to trade Michael Thomas. So
Okay.
I think that might actually end up happening. I don't know if you think that's possible or not.
I think it is a possibility, and I'm glad you brought that up because I think you could see him on the move at some point because with him not playing 6 weeks, it gives them ample time to look for trade partners and say, look, this is where he's at. He can come back. He can be impactful for you the second half of the season. So I think you're going to see a lot of teams that are interested in calling the Saints saying, what's up with Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas is the stash for me, though. I'm still buying him fairly high in drafts because I think if you have a solid enough team, he can be impactful for you in the second half of the season. Let's not act like Michael Thomas is not coming back and Michael Thomas is not Michael Thomas. We just don't know what we're getting right now.
When it comes to drafting Michael Thomas, I have a couple questions for you. When are you willing to draft him? 2, how many bench spots do you need in order for you to feel comfortable stashing him for 6 weeks, knowing that injuries pop up, waiver wire guy flows up that you might want, all these things. What are these? How are you taking these things into play when you thinking about drafting Michael Thomas?
I feel like this in a regular draft. I'm drafting Michael Thomas at rounds 5 or 6, depending on how my draft goes.
Wow.
5 or 6, I would take Michael Thomas.
So you would take it before you fill out your starters for week 1?
Depends on how you draft. Because if I take quarterbacks and tight ends late, I'll take Michael Thomas. If I take quarterbacks and tight ends early and I need to fill out my roster, maybe I'll let somebody else take Michael Thomas and I'll grab, the rest of my wide receivers and running backs at that point. But I feel like depending on how you draft, if he's there at 5 or 6 and you know that he's going to be out for 6 weeks, but you feel like your team is right there, like you have a good enough team, why not put that person on your bench to give you that second half boost?
Do you feel confident, like I was just talking about possibly getting traded, do you feel confident that if he gets traded that he's going to go somewhere that you're going to be happy with? Like that's my biggest fear with Michael Thomas is I think that he might get traded and he might not be able to be he's going to have to learn a new playbook. He's going to have to start, probably play a different role. Yeah, he might try to come in and be an alpha dog, but because he's Michael Thomas, but it's I never feel comfortable with wide receivers or any star player going from one team to the other, especially mid-season. It's always a different story.
I mean, what do we say Michael Thomas's biggest route is? What's his best route?
Quick slant. He loves slant.
It's not hard to run slant. It's not hard to run slant. All right. But let's get into the next topic. The fantasy fallout from the Sony Michel trade. Like, what are we making out of this?
I think Sony was. I don't like. I guess you can see I've been praising Belichick a lot, but I think Belichick did not use Sony right. I did not. I don't think he used Sony right because when Sony was in college, he was a pass catcher. He used to catch the ball. So now when he went to New England, they had Super James White, who was Brady's boy toy, catching the ball out of the backfield so much, and James White basically shut down the whole third down back and the passing down situation and made Sony just in between the tackles, a first and second down player. But Sony was not always that. Sony was a 3 down back and he had that ability in college and he was never able to show that in New England. Going to the Rams, I think that's a new lease on life. I think as soon as they saw a little hints of injury with Darrell Henderson, they said, hey, they gave up 2 draft picks for Sony Michel. That says something that Sean McVay wants to use this guy and knows how he's going to use this guy. I think it's a good situation over there. It muddies the situation for Henderson. And now at the beginning part of the season, it's going to be hard to trust either one to know who to start. Maybe by week 3, week 4, we'll get some clarity. But week 1, you're going to be taking a chance starting either one. But it also talks about what New England believes in Ramondre and Damian Harris again. I think it's a good situation for both of them. Sony has a chance to be a true stud over there.
So does Sony Michel become last year's Malcolm Brown, or is he more than Malcolm Brown?
He's better than Michael Brown. Malcolm Brown. I think he just has more talent. I think that offense is going to make him even better. Henderson can't stay healthy, and even if he does stay healthy, I think eventually Sony's going to take that job. I think they brought Sony in for this reason. They gave up 2 picks for him. I think it gives clarity on both sides. You have a direct handcuff to Harris in New England, and you have a situation in LA where Sony's going to end up taking that job over, unless Henderson plays his ass off. Which I don't know if he's going to be able to hold off Sony because Sony's just a better talent to me.
I'm not sold on Sony. I'm just gonna be honest. I know that McVay likes to use multiple running backs, but I'm not sold on Sony Michel. I think he can be a good, I don't even think he's a first and second down back. I just think he's more of like a spell back. Like he's going to come in and spell Darrell Henderson. I know Darrell Henderson's going to be involved in the pass game more than Sony. You know how McVay likes to use a lot of trickery with his running backs as well. I see Darrell as more of the impactful running back for that system than Sony Michel. But I think Sony is a great insurance buy because we know that Darrell Henderson cannot stay healthy, and Sony's next up.
So you don't think that Sony can turn around and become that 3-down back? He can take over and Henderson becomes just a spell back.
Nah, I don't think he's ever going to take over Henderson's role. I think he's going to be a guy that comes in. He's going to spell Henderson for a series or 2. But I think you're going to see Henderson out there more. Henderson's the guy that can play on passing downs. Henderson's the guy that has a better pass pro, I think, and is more of an impactful runner. I think Sony's going to be a guy that can get you short yardage. He can get you some goal line carries, but I don't see Sony as being that 3-down back for the Rams.
But
that's just my.
But like I said, I think Sony was miscast. Yeah. I guess we agreed to disagree. I think Sony was miscast in England. I think they weren't using him as a catcher. I think he has the ability, but they weren't using it. And I think this gives him a chance to actually show that he can catch the ball. Which I think it's possible that he's going to be very successful out there. I think
this is the first. I think this is the first time we will ever agree to disagree. All right, so let's get into your drafts. What trends have you noticed from the competition in your drafts? What are you seeing from a lot of the drafts that you're in and the people that you're drafting with?
I'm seeing running backs go early, and I think wide receivers are falling. And what I like the type of advice I like to give to people that are playing is when everybody's going left, you go right, because if you just keep following the trend, you're going to be taking people that you're going to just be making desperate moves. If you start seeing a run on running backs, you're going to take a running back that doesn't belong to be taken at a certain point in the draft. Why don't you go for that wide receiver or that's Pat Mahomes or Josh Allen early, because they're sitting there where normally they shouldn't be. They should have been gone already. So I've been seeing a lot of running backs go early. And people jump or and as long as you have the spot to start these players, you should be drafting them. yes, it's nice to have a running back, that sexy running back, in your RB1 spot. But if that RB1 spot, player is going to be equivalent in points to a wide receiver 15, and they're going to be in your lineup anyway, you might as well just take a wide receiver 15, because that running back one is a miscast as an RB1, because there was such a big run of running backs. So I've been seeing a lot of running backs go early. It's also about roster makeup and what you believe in trends. Me personally, this draft season, I've been going super wide receiver heavy, because I feel like running backs, there's so much injuries and such turnover with running backs. It's very hard to predict what's going to happen. And unless you handcuff your running back, like CMC last year, most people did not draft Mike Davis to handcuff CMC. You draft CMC, he's at a position that's very vulnerable. Every player's in the NFL is one play away from the season being ended, and we know running backs are more likely than any other position to have that happen. So, if you take a Devontae Adams, who's less likely to have 5 guys jump on his back after he makes a catch, might just be 1, maybe 2, and he's going to put up, 20 points a game, the same as someone like possibly Derrick Henry, without the worry of, his ankle getting rolled up on as much as Derrick Henry. Why not go for that? So that's the advice that I would give. If everyone's going left, you go right.
I think what I'm seeing is a lot of people are starting to draft quarterbacks a lot earlier than usual. And I think it's because people realize how valuable the quarterback position is. I know we always say, draft your quarterback late, draft your tight end late. But I think with this year, with so much uncertainty with the quarterback position, you have a lot of either new rookie second year quarterbacks, where if you can get a Josh Allen or Pat Mahomes or even a Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, and that can be your anchor for your fantasy team, why not get that person early? So I'm seeing a lot of people jump at quarterbacks in the second round, third round, where normally you wouldn't see them go until maybe the 4th, 5th, 6th. There's a lot of quarterbacks that can get you through your weeks, but there's not that week to week, like steady, sturdy quarterback. And then you talk about like a guy like Dak Prescott, you don't know what you're getting because you haven't seen Dak in the preseason. And you don't know how his arm is, or, he's coming off the ACL. It's just so much uncertainty. So I think a lot of people are trying to go with the quarterback that they know is going to get them through the week.
Yeah, and those stud quarterbacks, if you get one of them, they make up for a lot of deficiencies in, like, one of your star players having a bad week, or, going against that top corner and being shut down. They make up for those deficiencies. But I'll ask you this question. At what quarterback would you say, if you don't get, hold off and wait on a quarterback? And what round is that typically?
I would say like round 10 or 11. I think you can wait. And at that round, there's always Joe Burrow that's left for me. I know there's uncertainty with Joe Burrow. He's coming back from the ACL. But when I look at his numbers from last season and what he was doing while he was healthy, I think there's a lot to look forward to this season. And there's none of that. AJ Green is not on the field. You have Jamar Chase, you have T. Higgins, you have Tyler Boyd, you have a solid trio of wide receivers, which is what we're looking for a quarterback as well. And then also you have Joe Mixon coming out of the backfield if he can stay healthy as well. My only concern is the O-line.
So what I was trying to ask is, like, if you don't get like a Pat Mahomes, like at where's your cutoff of stud quarterbacks that if I don't get Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Russell Wilson, you know what? I'm stopping. I'm not going to go. Who's that quarterback where you say, I would take a quarterback early if it's A, B, or C, but if I don't get one of them, I'm waiting for Joe Burrow. What's that cutoff line for you?
I would say I get to like the Russell Wilson tier, and it's like around round 6, you get to the Russell Wilson tier, and it's like, okay, if he's gone by the time that pick comes, I'm just waiting until I get back to the Joe Burrow round, and I'll just grab Joe Burrow late.
I agree. That's exactly the cutoff for me is Russell Wilson.
It, it,
I'm at the same
it's always like Joe Burrow or Ryan Tannehill that's left, and those are two solid options because they have good wide receivers. Ryan Tannehill also gives you rushing yards as well. He can use his feet, so I always look at it like, okay, that's who I'm going after right there. Is Joe Burrow, the Ryan Tannehill. That's that's what I'm looking for.
You know, another a player that no one's talking about. He's off the radar, but he's a big name player. Is Big Ben. Everyone likes Claypool. Everyone likes Deontay Johnson. You know, Juju's still Juju. They have three receivers that are getting a lot of love in fantasy drafts, as well as Najee Harris going in the first two rounds of drafts. Who's going to be getting them the ball that you love that type of production from? It's going to be Big Ben. So if you like Juju, Deontay, Claypool, then you have to like Big Ben as well. But Big Ben's going undrafted.
Do you think that people are scared of Big Ben because of health?
If they are, I think I think they should think twice because one, he's a big guy. He used to take a lot of hits. I think he slowed. He doesn't get hit as much anymore. The O line was horrible last year, but he still was getting the ball out quickly. He changed his diet this past off season. So I think he's actually he might be a sleeper. I think it's hard for Big Ben, who's been around for close to 20 years, to be a sleeper, but I think he might surprise people and start giving them a lot of love. Because if you think in Claypool, people that drafted Claypool thinks he's going to get 1,000 yards. People that think drafting Juju think that he's going to do his 80 catches, 1,000 yards. People think Deontay's going to have 100 catches again. So if everybody's right with this, Big Ben's the one that's going to be throwing it to. So I think people are really undervaluing Big Ben as a quarterback overall in fantasy.
I like Ben. I think it's just there's a mix of like age and health, and I think that concerns people. But you're right. If we're talking about having the best complement of wide receivers, I think Big Ben has one of the best complement of receivers as well.
With Najee coming out of the backfield as well, catching balls. I think the thing about us fantasy players in general, is that we like the shiny new toy. We love shiny new toy. We like the first and second year player. We always talking about the upside as opposed to thinking about the safety of a player. And I think that that in fantasy you need to be able to balance that out. You need to be able to balance out the person that you know is going to be consistent and has been proven, with as well as taking the risk on some players that are going to be that upside long term, whether it's Najee Harris or something. I personally, like last year, CEH was the big guy. You know, first round, going mid first round pick as a rookie. We didn't see him do anything, and everyone was drafting him so early. We always want to be on the cutting edge of the next big thing. So that being said, the reason why nobody's talking about Big Ben is because everybody knows him at this point. You know, he's well known, he's established, and he's not as sexy as, you know, the Joe Burrows, the Trey Lances, the rookie quarterbacks. Last year, the same situation. I had a couple of leagues where Aaron Rodgers wasn't even drafted. Granted, in 2019, he had an off year, but he was still Rodgers. He wasn't drafted because people are always looking for the sexy new name. And I think we need to, stop chasing the sexy name and stop chasing, showing our knowledge in a lot of our leagues. We always want to show that we're on the cutting edge of who's new and who's great. But, over-rely wrong with that. Consistency and knowing what you're going to get out of a player, there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah, I think it was crazy that Aaron Rodgers wasn't drafted last year. But you know why? It was because of the injury the year before. And that's the same thing we're worried about with Big Ben. So that's why we're seeing Big Ben go off the board either so late or he's not being drafted at all. It's the concern of health. But it's just crazy that A-Rod, being A-Rod, was not being drafted in some leagues. But,
exactly. So that goes to show that, we're all about the new sexy name, the new shiny toy. A-Rod doesn't get drafted. Big Ben is not getting drafted. there's always players like that, especially with the quarterbacks. We always want the latest and greatest thing, and I think that hurts a lot of players in terms of what they possibly can get. They're going for an upside, whether it's with Trevor Lawrence. I've seen Trevor Lawrence go before Big Ben. Are you telling me that Trevor Lawrence has a better receiving core than Big Ben? You telling me Zach Wilson has a better receiving core than Big Ben? And we know what Big Ben is capable of doing, So, and he did lead the Steelers to playoffs last year. So, and I think they won the division as well. They won the North. So,
Yeah.
we can't forget that Big Ben is still Big Ben. He's a Hall of Famer. Let's not write him off so soon, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I'm sorry. I'm like drafting at the same time right now, and I'm doing it on my phone.
I didn't know you had a draft. That's crazy that you.
Yeah,
I was told earlier that you had a draft at 9 o'clock. I'm like, I'm supposed to be podcasting with him.
Yeah, it started at 9, so I'm checking my phone to see where I'm at in the draft. This is my first time actually doing it on the phone, so it's interesting.
That's good. So give the listeners a little preview of what your mindset is right now and who's going off the board, and what do you think of what so far the draft is going?
So it's just crazy because I don't even know where I am right now. But it's a keeper league, so I started off with T. Higgins. I started off with James Robinson, Chris Godwin. I think my first round pick was Aaron Jones. I was at pick 4, but Alvin Kamara was kept. Now, I think my team so far is DJ Moore. I picked up Cooper Kupp. I picked up, I can't even remember the second, Myles Gaskin as well for like my flex position. I picked up Brady as my quarterback. Devontae Smith is one of my, bench stashes for wide receiver. So now I'm kind of like on to the defense part. So, I'm trying to figure out where I fit now.
Yeah. So about like keeper leagues, what are some little tricks that you know about, like that you take advantage of in the off season in keeper leagues that some of your other opponents don't use? Like what are some of the tricks and on how positioning, or what are you looking for in players to keep, or the value? What makes you say that this is a good value in order to keep?
You're going to start a whole nother podcast, but I think for me, it's about where that player is kept, where I think that they should go in the draft, and then also I'm strategically trying to see where my position is to pick in that draft as well. So if I have, let's say, 3 keepers, 2 are running backs, 1 is wide receiver, I'm trying to draft a wide receiver in the first round because I already have 2 running backs that I've kept. So I'm trying to strategically place where I am and then where my keepers are. And then I'm trying to build up my position to where I can gain some picks to maybe get another wide receiver to build. So I'm always like looking at the landscape of the board and, what picks I have, where I am, and what I need to draft in order for my team to be complete.
Yeah, it's the one thing that I think a lot of people in keeper leagues don't take advantage of is draft positioning and with their keepers. So, for example, if you have a keeper in the 7th round and you have pick 6 in the 7th round, you know you're not going to have a 7th round pick because your keeper's going there. You should negotiate or try to talk to other league members that might be at the back half of the 2nd round. Let's say they have pick 7-12. Say, hey, listen, if you want to move up 7-6 in the 7th round, I'm willing to give you that pick. We could swap 7th round picks, but in return, let me get your 8-1 for my 8-7. I think a lot of people don't take advantage of those little nuances that helps them get an early pick. So now I have my 7th round keeper. I don't care where he's placed on the board, but now I have the first pick of the 8th round because I made that little strategic move, and that person that I traded with, is happy now because instead of having pick 7-12, he has seven. He has pick 7-6. So I think those are little tricks and trades when it comes to moving around and jumping around the draft board to help position you where other people aren't really thinking about that. I think that's what separates people, half-ass players, as I would say, and the full-time dedicated ones. Is they're
Yeah.
always constantly looking for the slight advantage, whether you know your team, you know your league mates, you know who they like. In a lot of cases, you know what they might be looking for. So if you could jump a couple picks to snipe somebody that you have your eye on, that's huge. In the NFL draft, they do that all the time. They'll jump up 3 spots just to get their player because they know someone in between might be looking at the same guy. So I think in keeper leagues, people need to really start to look at it on that macro level and really at macro and micro level, see the whole picture of things, and that will make people a little bit more successful and also give them that advantage and that confidence that, I'm going to get that guy. If you are mocking and you say, man, this guy's going in the 7th round, but my pick in the 7th round is a little late, I'm going to need to jump to get it. Make a move to get it. Don't be shy about that. I think in keeper leagues, you have to take advantage of little situations like that.
Yeah, I think it's also about, like, if you have a 3-keeper league, you know that 36 players are off the board already if you're in a 12-team league. So that's automatically 3 rounds of your draft gone. So a player that should be going in the 8th may be going in the 5th, and you have to know that you have to jump for that player if you really want that player. So I think that's key as well. So just knowing that landscape, knowing how to position yourself, and knowing exactly where certain players are going to fall, and if you want that player, you got to go get him. So you may not, other people may not believe in him, but if you believe in that player, you go get him at that point. So
one more question I have for you is, how much stock do you put in ADP? Because even if you don't agree with the player's ADP, like for example, Callaway, I'm very high on him. I was high on him on all the drafts, but his ADP says he's going to 10th round. Even if you're in a 3-keeper league, you may say, okay, he might go into 8th. But if you really want him and you believe that he's still better than, the people that are there, how far do you jump? And how much do you really look at the ADP to know that, maybe I don't need to jump so high for him. Maybe I could jump 1 round higher than normal, but because everyone's thinking he should be in the 10th round, maybe I jump to the 9th, as opposed to saying, I think he's the 20th best wide receiver. So at the 20th wide receiver is going in the 5th round, so let me jump there. How much do you take into consideration the ADP because your opponents are taking that into consideration?
I don't take ADP into much consideration because it's a consensus view of a lot of people that may not be looking at the same thing as you. So if you trust your assessment and your knowledge and where you think a player should go or where you think they should fall, then I think your trust in yourself is more valuable than the ADP itself, because the ADP is people who may not be as well versed in fantasy as you and I that are trying to tell you where a certain player should go. So like, it's just people mock drafting and where that certain player is falling, and you can't always trust that. So I trust myself more with my analysis than I do the actual rankings and the ADP.
I agree with you to a degree, but I do think that when you look at the ADP, even if like I was giving an example of Callaway, even if you have him ranked extremely higher than the rest of the fantasy community, you still say, I like him. If he's normally going in the 4th round, or if I think he should be going in the 4th round, but I could get him in the 10th round, I'm not going to draft him in the 4th. I might draft him in the 7th, or something like that, because I know that the ADP says and that's what most people are going off of. Other people's rankings are saying he's a 10th round pick.
Well,
but I like him a bit more, so I'm not going to jump out the window because I like him, even though I think, like, for example, in one of my leagues, I have Brandon Cooks. We would say that Brandon Cooks is going higher than Callaway in drafts, right? But if I'm trying to trade Brandon Cooks for Callaway, and the owner straight up, and the owner's like, hell no, even though Brandon Cooks was drafted 2-3 rounds ahead of Callaway. So at that point, you like a player, but he's not really going where his value to you it may be different, or you may say, I could get Callaway late, even though he's worth more. So why should I even pay that price?
See, my thing is you also have to look at who's still on the board. If you know that there are better players on the board, you draft a better player. But you have to wait and sometimes take the chance and say, I'll wait until it comes back around. And if that player is there and I feel like they're the right player for me at that point, then I'll draft them. But there's always, I feel like you have to kind of do some analysis and say, is this player right for me at this time, or are there better players available?
I agree with that. But my only thing is that I may have a player ranked much higher than everyone else, so it may not be advantageous to me to draft him as high as I need, as I am on him.
Yep.
Or like it's like in an auction draft, you may have put such a high value on a player, but there's no need to pay that price for that player because no one else is that high on it. So you may not go that high. So I think knowing, at least, not that you're following other people's ADP, but at least you should be aware of what the rest of the fantasy community.
Yeah, I agree with that.
About where they're going, because your competition and a lot of them are thinking about that, and they're using those rankings or a version of that and may modify it slightly.
Yeah, I agree with that. But all right, bud, I think we've covered a lot in this hour, and I appreciate you joining the There's No Crying in Fantasy show. Yeah. So we're gonna end week 3 here, and we'll pick it up next week.
All right, it was a great time. I look forward to continuing doing this.
All right, man.
Week 1 is a little bit a week away, so get ready for the season.
I appreciate you joining.
My pleasure.
All right, man.
Take care.
Later.